Welcome back to another IU Film Room. This is Tony Adrania at Coach Adrania on Twitter. Today, breaking down the IU North Alabama game. Again, just want to thank you for continuing to tune into these breakdowns here over the last few games. Received a lot of really positive feedback, which has been really cool to see. So if you like these, I just ask that you continue to share them, continue to like them, comment, feedback, all that good stuff. This game with IU and North Alabama, I thought IU actually looked pretty dang good on the defensive end and offensive end. I thought North Alabama hit a lot of tough shots in the first half. Water kind of found its level there in the second half, and IU pulled away and ultimately got a big win. But yeah, like I said, want to just kind of dive into IU North Alabama starting right here. So last game I broke down, I showed you against Portland State, the most common action that IU really ran against them was this little play where Armaan Franklin would come off a down screen either way he wanted, and whoever was at the top of this diamond would flare on that, as we can see here. In this play, Armaan comes off a down screen here. This guy posts, which happens to be Trace. Goes back underneath, comes back off. Jerome Hunter flares the other side. Finney ultimately ends up kicking it out to Hunter, and he drills a three. So first play of the game on last night, I'm obviously doing this breakdown the following day. IU sets up right in this diamond set. So if they were scouted the previous night, you're thinking, okay, Armaan Franklin's coming off this way. Jerome Hunter is going to flare out. And I really like what Archie did here. So what we see is Armaan actually comes off this down screen, and now he starts curling it. His man's trailing behind him, and they're ultimately setting up a back cut for Armaan Franklin as option number one. So we see Franklin back cut right here. Trace throws that pass. Probably open, not positive. Might have been better to get a shooter in this corner, so that guy would have helped a little bit more. But ultimately, Armaan Franklin's probably open here. Trace doesn't pass it to him. He kicks to Joey. Now we see Armaan comes up and sets his diagonal screen for Trace. This guy does a nice job of bumping Trace, but really had Trace on the block free. But what I don't like about this is if Trace catches on this block and he wants to turn back to the middle, he's got to turn over his left shoulder, which means he's got to shoot it with his right hand. Not where he's strongest right now on the floor. It would have been better if he caught on this block and then put the shot up there. Ultimately, he gets the ball stolen from him, as we can see here. But I really like the set from Archie Miller to start the game because he added another wrinkle into the most common set he ran from the previous game. Just didn't work out for him. So this play here was actually IU's first field goal of the night last night, which came just a little bit more than 4 minutes into the game. As you can see on the graphic here, 3 turnovers at that point. And this is a trend that I think we're going to see a lot of with the Hoosiers. We showed it to you in the last film breakdown against Portland State. When the game clock was running down, IU sent 4 guys low and sent a ball screen for Finney. Here, the shot clock was running down in this possession. What does IU call? They call it 5, I'm pretty sure. They send 4 guys low, and then they send a big up to screen. We see Finney right here. Look, Joey Brunk does a nice job setting the screen. Now his man, Finney's got his man on his hip. This guy right here, he's kind of got to guard too. He's got to guard Joey Brunk on the roll. He's got to guard Finney here. You watch Finney here. He just gives one nice little hesitation move that stands this defender up a little bit, and he's ultimately able to get to the rim. Hesitation, 2 points. This was one of IU's first half-court defensive possessions in the game, and it resulted in a 3 for North Alabama. I'm going to show you what happened here in this play that led to that 3. So we see here, pause it. So Joey Brunk is hedging on this ball screen here. Al Durham is what's called the tag guy. He's supposed to try to take this roll guy away until Joey Brunk can recover, and then Al Durham recovers to his man. Well, as we can see in this play, Joey hedges out pretty high. Durham's about a half a step late. Well, now this guy gets the ball. So what Joey Brunk is taught to do here is if the guy who's the tag guy takes the roller and the roller gets the ball, that becomes his man now. So what Joey Brunk has to do is it's called X out. Joey is now taking Al Durham's man. As you'll see, he sprints across the floor, and this is now his man, number 3. So Joey sprints across the floor. Now he's got number 3. Now North Alabama's got a mismatch. This is their point guard with IU's big. Joey Brunk does everything he probably can do. He gets a hand high, He closes out, ends up with a nice shot for North Alabama, which, like I said, they hit some tough shots. But that actually happened all because of pick and roll about 10 seconds prior to that. This next action, from what I've gathered, actually I think is part of IU's transition offense. But in this particular play, Jerome Hunter has the ball in the wing. IU's pushing, as you can see, Al Durham, and I think that might be Deron Davis, are trailing. Race Thompson's on the block. Armand Franklin's out in the corner. So Jerome Hunter ends up swinging the ball to Deron Davis. So part of their transition offense, I believe, is to end up setting a back screen here. And IU's got some big guards that they can post, Jerome Hunter being one of them. So Race Thompson sets that back screen. And then basically his man has to help on Jerome Hunter, or it's going to be a back cut lob. The guy that was actually guarding Jerome Hunter, he thinks the natural movement is for Jerome Hunter to cut to the other side of the floor. Well, what IU does is they stop on that block if they've got a guard they can post. And they end up just posting him. Jerome Hunter posts him, makes a nice little hook shot, and gets 2 points for the Hoosiers. This next play isn't any breaking news or anything like that, but it's just to show you how valuable Trayce Jackson-Davis is to this team, how much he's forced to move on defense in this particular possession, and what he ultimately ends up doing. So he's all the way here. He's got to get to the block. He's now hedging a screen way out here. And then look, he sees what's going to happen. He gets down low. He gets underneath, and he actually ends up blocking that shot and rebounding it. He was all the way probably 25 feet from the basket, sprints his tail off, gets to the rim, and ends up blocking a shot that he probably had no business blocking. So we've talked in the other film breakdowns about how IU seems to be really focusing on their transition offense. And I'll tell you what, Joey Brunk actually is a big part of that. Look where Joey Brunk is at right now when this ball goes in the basket. So North Alabama makes a shot. Joey Brunk's right here. Finney gets down the court in 3 or 4 dribbles. Joey Brunk is on the block before anybody on North Alabama can get down there. So we look at Brunk right here. Look at this. He is below all 5 North Alabama defenders. Finney does a nice job of finding him. But Joey Brunk sprinting his tail off and getting to that block before anybody else is going to play dividends for IU's transition offense. This was an instance towards the end of the first half that North Alabama decided to go zone, and I thought IU did a really, really nice job of doing exactly what you need to do against a 2-3 zone to get a great look. And we'll kind of run it here, and I'll do some pausing. So we stopped right here. What you have to do against a 2-3 zone defense is overload a side, and that's exactly what IU does. And by overload, I mean they've got 1, 2, 3, 4 offensive players on one side of the floor. So really, they've got 3 to try to guard 4. Guys are going to have to get out of position. This guy right here is really not guarding anybody. So as we fast forward a little bit, so now we've got the ball on the baseline. You've got 2 that are trying to guard 1 here maybe. Joey Brunk is in the middle. Now Al Durham's kind of running free. Nobody's really guard him. And this is all because of that overload. So now what we see is ball goes back to Finney. So right here, number 5's got Finney. Finney's got an open lane right here because he's got this guy on his hip. This guy right here has Race Thompson. This guy right here has Joey Brunk. This guy right here has a corner shooter, which I believe in this case is Jerome Hunter. So what happens is Finney drives. He pulls this defender with him. Now there's nobody, absolutely nobody, guarding Al Durham. So Al Durham catches it in stride. Wide open 3-point shot for a good shooter. Knocks it down. Again, newsflash, Trayce Jackson-Davis is good at basketball and he's athletic. In this play here, he gets a dunk. But I actually want to show you something that is the reason I believe he got this dunk. And something different than what I think we saw last year. So Trayce catches this ball right here. If Finney stands, Al Durham stands, these guys right here have an opportunity, if Trayce drives this ball left, to reach their hand in there and ultimately stop his driving lane. But what we see is Finney goes to screen away, creating a driving lane now for Trayce Jackson. Now, Brunk is kind of standing here, but he's spaced enough. He's not just standing under the rim. He's spaced enough to still give Trayce a driving lane, and if his guy comes to help, Trayce can dump off to him. But this off-ball movement and spacing is exactly why Trace Jackson Davis is able to drive this ball and dunk it for two. I talk a lot about IU's baseline out of bounds plays, and that's because in my eyes as a basketball coach, baseline out of bounds plays is like first and goal from the one in a football stance. Like it's an opportunity where you've got a great opportunity to score off of something. And why I really like Archie Miller's baseline out of bounds plays is because they're all set up the same. They all start off with this 4-low set. As we've seen this exact play every single game IU's run it. What it turns into is a basic flex. I don't think Finney really even does a very good job screening here on Trace Jackson. Race is going to go down screen for Finney. But even still, Trace fights for position. He gets the ball right on the low block, able to turn over the shoulder he likes, and he gets fouled, and he gets two shots where he was great from the free throw line last night. So now IU's back on the baseline again. This is like a minute later, maybe even less. Pretty same setup. You've got four guys low. You've even got Race Thompson calling for the ball. You've got Trace on the outside just like he was. So you think the same play's coming. Well, now it's not. You've got a screen by Jerome Hunter. His man gets completely lost. He thinks that, or he's trying to take away this cut here to the block. Well, his man, like I said, gets completely lost, and now he's trailing. Trace sets a down screen. It's a screen-to-screener action. He's got about 10 feet of room. He's one of IU's best shooters. Unfortunately, he doesn't knock this one down, but it's a great set, great action. I love the way Archie Miller runs his baseline out-of-bounds plays. This is a play that IU's run since the Gannon game. I've broken it down for you. Ultimately, what it ends up in is a back cut for a guard that clears to the corner, and then a ball screen where the guard comes off that ball screen, and they've got a lot of space to work with. But I want to show you what happens because there's an option in here that doesn't get hit a lot, but when it's open, it's great to see, and it's when you catch teams being lazy. So what we see here is you've got an overload to the side. I think IU ran this maybe their first play of the year, but Justin Smith was the guy coming off this screen here. So ultimately, you've got everybody on one side of the floor, and you've got to clear out. Like I said, Al Durham comes off this screen. Usually, he just flares to this corner, and then Race Thompson's going to go set a ball screen, and whoever's got coming off that ball screen has a lot of space to work with coming off the screen. But what happens here, Race sets this screen. His man doesn't help at all. And what happens is Al Durham pops wide open with nobody on help side because the floor is cleared out, and it's 2 easy points. Early on this season, IU's given me absolutely no reason to be worried about a full court press against them. In fact, I actually think the last 2 games, it's hurt their opponent more than it's helped them. And here's why. So North Alabama's running what's called a run and jump defense. It's basically you kind of mask it as it's a man-to-man. You see this guy that's guarding Demezy Anderson. He's kind of acting like he's guarding Demezy, but really he's going to trap this when he thinks it's an advantageous situation. But what happens here is he goes to trap this. Demezy finds space. Al Durham does a really nice job finding Demezy. Now North Alabama's left scrambling. They've got guys that are running all over the place. Demezy's got a driving lane. I'm sure you all remember this play. It ultimately ends up in a lob for Trace, but it's really because of pressure and then IU breaking the pressure, and it turns into a scramble situation for North Alabama. So we see North Alabama pressing again just about a minute later. Again, they're running this run and jump. As you can see actually 3 North Alabama players to just 1 for IU with Al Durham in the frame. Durham does a nice job. Again, he finds space. Race does a nice job of finding space as well right in the middle of the floor. So Race catches this ball. Now he's got several different options. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 IU guys to North Alabama's 3. They're left scrambling again. Trace just got a lob, so they're going to try to take that away. So what happens there is it leaves Armand Franklin wide open in the corner for 3. So that's all we've got today on this edition of the IU Film Room. Again, IU, I thought, played a pretty well-rounded game against North Alabama. North Alabama hit some tough threes in the first half that let them hang around a little bit longer than people probably would have liked. But I thought it was a full game that IU put together. They took care of the ball, especially in the second half. They defended well. Guys were talking. Guys were moving their feet. And on the offensive end, they were executing. So until next time, again, I really appreciate you guys watching these. Again, subscribe, like, do whatever you got to do. share around. I love for these to get as big as they can. Ultimately, I do them because I love IU and I love coaching and I love breaking down game film. So this is just kind of a natural thing for me. But again, I appreciate you. Give me a follow on Twitter at Coach Adranya. Until next time, thanks for watching.